UHC Happy Hour for the first time in a while. We're live here trackside, and as always, you guys send in your comments here. We've got Danny Formal and Ryan Norberg here joining me. Boys, first of all, long day for one of you, somewhat long day for you, Danny, as well. So first of all, Ryan, thanks for joining us. I know it's not always fun to do media when the day's not been as ending as good as it
always
wanted
fun
to be.
with you, Xander.
Hey, man. I appreciate that. Danny, thanks for coming as well, buddy. First thing I wanted to get into, I don't want to spend too much time because we only have so much with both of you guys. So, Ryan, what I wanted to go to start, right, is it's been a common trend with all your teammates. You get them as fast or almost as fast as you in every practice session. We go to qualifying, and no matter what, I mean, it's very rare. Your record against everybody is like by a couple hundredths more. Even today, right? Taking the half-pound underweight penalty away, it was a half-tenth over you over Diego. Donovan was close, and the same in the last practice too. So what is the difference, especially when you do those new tire runs, that's that last little bit that those guys, can't find, but most of the time you have the edge on?
I think it's experience. I think when you it's one of those things of qualifying is just get the most out of the go-kart that you can. And so it's kind of those on-the-fly decisions that you're making. I mean, for example, in qualifying, the temperature really caught us all out. I think it caught pretty much the whole field out because it got really cold. And so, that first lap, instead of pushing and trying to do a good lap, obviously I know the first lap, doesn't matter how good you are, it's not going to be fast. So instead of pushing that lap, I just decided I'm just going to warm everything up some more and just keep some heat in the tires that way. And I think that helped significantly. That brought me it helped me out quite a lot because my fastest lap, about halfway through the lap, that's when the tires kind of kicked in. So I think the difference is experience. You go out there sometimes a corner gets a little bit more grippy and you have to turn in half cart length sooner, but that's something you figure out on the first lap and you have to change, and that's all it comes down to. But like you said, I think the overall pace of the rest of the team is getting pretty good, and it's good to see Diego was there too. That's why we have multiple guys up front, because if something happens to one, you've got another one to fill it in. So yeah, good job for the team today.
Yeah, and Danny, over to you. You've been a champion since we've been doing Happy Hour with the first time you had on, calling everybody out, calling guys like Ryan and myself out that have never touched pro shifter racing. This weekend, what do you rate the turnout? How's everybody kind of feeling about, an 18-car field? The USPK has stepped up. They're going to still give the purse money for it, which is cool. But what's been the atmosphere like from everyone that you've talked to?
Well, first of all, great to be back in a karting track, not coaching and driving. It's been a while since Vegas, and that didn't end well for me. So,
right.
I was beryled, but it was good. It's good. Great weekend so far. Marion, very good lap in qualifying. I don't know what happened to me in qualifying. Maybe it was just lack of experience, what Ryan said. I just couldn't get out what the go-kart had to give. But, yeah, it's great to see 18 KZs, first ever race in KZ for USPKS to have that big of a grid. It's pretty impressive. It's kind of still winter, and we know that KZ for some reason starts normally in August, Newcastle.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see 18 guys. Very glad that USPKS kept the purse. Obviously, it changes a lot the way we drive as professional drivers, as trying to get make our living.
Right.
A purse definitely changes the way we drive, the way we approach things, even the mechanics, because you have to keep everyone on good side, so you give a little money here, a little money there. So everyone really pushing for those purses. So I'm really glad USPKS did that. I think 18 for your first ever race in KZ is really impressive. And I forgot how fast the KZs were. I've been driving, rock shifter for quite a bit. I was practicing last weekend and going through the chicane curbs, first lap on the KZ. I did the same thing I did all last week, and I almost killed myself. It's crazy how fast we're going. We're going 82 miles an hour on the straightaway here to 65 of a X30. It's just unbelievable. We're 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds faster than the X30 around this place. It's really a beast.
That's pretty crazy, actually. I didn't
realize
it was that much faster.
It's insane. Like our race, 26 lap final, both of our races, ours going to be 6 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So far so good. Really impressed with the USPKS. This is the second time I run USPKS. I ran one time USPKS in 2012, I believe, or 2013 with an Arrow. with Eric Jones in Newcastle. That's the last time I ran. It was imagine that was a Perilla Leopard. It wasn't even X30. So that's the last time I ran USPKS. But yeah, so far so good. The go-kart's been great. Mike, from RPG, Joe, and everyone from RPG, just, the go-kart's great. Anyone that says the Tony Kart's not good in shifter hasn't driven it. Really, I've been completely standard all weekend. Was completely standard in Vegas, half a second faster in the field in Vegas and warm up before, again, getting taken out. So, yeah, we were P1 pretty much all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. This morning, me and Marin went back and forth. And, yeah, in qualifying, I just don't know. I just didn't feel like I had it. I don't know. I felt weird. It's okay. Go back to the drawing board and see what we can change for tomorrow morning. But I'm happy to be here, happy to be racing. Great preparation for next week. I have a big race next week. So this is awesome to keep me in shape for at the end of the day, what we all want to do is become a professional race car driver. And I got the opportunity next week. So super excited for that.
Yeah, and that's one thing. You're kind of halfway in, halfway out the door. From the time we did that first happy hour, I think it was almost over a year ago, if not over a year ago, and we were talking about, you and AJ on, calling everybody out, but also hyping up shifter racing. Since then, and even, even before then or after, right, do you, I don't know, field more questions from guys about shifter racing? Do you talk to around the paddock to kind of hype people up? I mean, you're only around it so often, especially this year, right? Back and forth. But do you see yourself as kind of a leader in the paddock in that way of kind of grounding up the hype and excitement to get the field numbers? Like, do you talk with a lot of guys throughout the field beyond just your teammates too?
Well, to be honest, again, the shifter racing, not necessarily, let's say, okay, for me, yeah, it's the hardest race go-kart you could ever drive. Physically demanding. It's so fast. It's just everything is so. It's another level, right? But in my opinion, KZ and rock shifter racing is another level. If you also want to go somewhere else, if you want to stay in go-karts and do this as a professional go-kart driver, you could do either class. If you want, this is a perfect stepping stone. If you want to go do F4, you want to go do GT cars. All these cars have downshifts, upshifts, just like us. Front brakes, just like us. That's the number one thing I see about KZ. It's really a ladder, Let's say right below. I wouldn't even.
Yeah, it's hard to say it's below, right? Because there are professional drivers in it versus the other stuff.
This is way harder. I just did 24 hours of Daytona. This is 10 times harder. This is so much more. My body, it looks like I just got beat by Conor McGregor.
I was going to say, the 26-lap final on Sunday is going to really test you guys.
I haven't driven since November, and my body is definitely all beat up. So it's just different. And, yes, I do talk to kids. We have a couple kids in junior now that, they race in Mexico, and one of them races shifter in Mexico already, and he really enjoys it. So, obviously, he needs to do some X30 with Ryan. Obviously, Ryan knows how to teach these kids the way to race. You see Donovan Bonilla winning in Homestead. He wouldn't have won before without Ryan or Diego Quintecha. He's right there now. We have a lot of guys. Lauren, I don't know his last name. Lego. He's never been anywhere. Now he's right there again. So definitely, I think X30 Junior, X30 Senior, half a season or a season, and then you do a KZ. If that's what you want. If you want to continue and go car racing, yes, that's my opinion what you need to do. Ryan makes a great living does as a professional driver do an X30. That's what he does. That's what he teaches. That's what he does. So there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, I want him to come race KZ against me. Obviously, I'll put the smackdown on him.
Dude. Talk to Raleigh, man. I want to do it.
Well, the dynamics are different, right?
For sure.
It's a different thing.
Again, I'm a paid driver. Ryan's a paid driver. I'm KZ. Ryan's X30. Mm-hmm. So we do the same thing for the team. Obviously, he has a lot more people to coach. I don't. That's one of the things I'm there for. But, again, the X30 to the KZ, the only thing that really changes to me is what you want to do after that, right? Yeah. That's it. So, again, yes, I talked to a lot of kids. I was actually really disappointed this year with the both SCUSA Winter Series and Rock Shifter numbers. They were way down from last year when I raced and way down from the year before. I don't know why. Really frustrating because I saw a huge movement by like halfway last year to the end of the year. Like Vegas, we had 82 KZs. It was insane. So I was like, okay, 2023 is going to be huge for KZ, and then we show up to Homestead and there's 4. I'm like, okay, that didn't work. We go to show up to Rock. I'm like, okay, there's gonna be 35. There's 18. Like, you know what I mean? Like it went way down from, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. I don't know. I'm mind blown, to be honest. I did see some KC drivers this weekend that were racing tag, which is kind of cool. Justin White, I think, is one of them.
Yeah,
I think that's his name.
Yeah, he's running. I know they've got their team as well. Colin Daly's doing both, right? Because they were, they were checking to see if they could get a different guy to run. But I mean, Colin's a wheelman, so like if they couldn't find someone else to go run with them for what they needed, they have him in both. So that's cool, having to go both. And it is, over here. And part of it, right, Ryan, I mean, I feel like you can attest to it a little bit. You were in that same age group of Kyle Kirkwood, Austin Garrison, obviously notably. You did, through the scholarship test, right? You even did some extra tests on your own to prep for the scholarship test to do stuff with USF 2000, and then budget's not there, right? So the only thing to come back to at the top level at the time really was X30 racing, because that was right at the beginning of the transition off the stock Honda, and I mean, no question, Shifter's been in a lull, ever since trying to get back. So in terms of trying to, race when you don't have the money to run it at the high level on your own, you got to go where the opportunities are, and the opportunities are abundant in the X30 stuff even still, and it seems like even more now. And eventually, they'll get there in the same way with Shifter. I mean, the rides are constructed differently, right? Like, even we have obviously the 206 race last weekend, the CKNA Spring Nationals, as great as that is, and as great as that is for the sport to have a really good economy class. At the same time, there's a lot of kids in those classes that will progress over here and run faster stuff, and then eventually go over to car stuff. A lot of the general public looks at that and they look like, all right, they're going to buy a go-kart based off of what wins that race, not so much if they run that class. Whereas now, just as much as it's about putting a team up front to showcase coaching, the other half of your guys part of it, well, it is for other manufacturers. I wouldn't say it's as much because Tony Kart has the market share, but the other part is to move product, right? And more shifters being bought and more people just looking at a kart winning a shifter class is probably still a really good brand of a go-kart that's going to also win other classes back home, is going to fund the rides as well, on the funded side. But Ryan, I mean, I'm sure you probably didn't care what you were racing when you got to the 2017 season. It was just find the way to continue, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I think, I mean, obviously I knew what I was probably going to be racing. I mean, I'm fast in a tag. I've done the shifter. I did a shifter for a little bit, like in junior shifter, and I wasn't really that good. So I was like, granted, I was an idiot then, but I was like, let's leave the shifter thing aside. Obviously the budget wasn't there to do the 2 classes thing like most kids were doing, so we just stuck with the one. And my dad and mom, my parents have always just been like, get your skill, your niche, or whatever it is, and then just try and maximize that opportunity. And so it was tag racing, and it's like you said, I kind of hit it at a good time to where that was kind of, it took the market share over. The majority of everybody was racing tag at the time. It also was, I went with Burrell, and like you said, they're trying to sell product, so it was a good opportunity for me. Get the cart up front, in the category that everybody was wanting to race. I mean, it was a time that the 175 came out, which obviously didn't take off too good. So the shifter stuff kind of died, and then I was able to capitalize on a lot of the progression towards the X30 stuff. Obviously, like, I would still want to drive shifter at some point now that I'm smart enough to drive it and actually get it. And I've been telling Danny I want to get out there with him just so he can help me figure it out a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, it's a different world, like Danny was saying. We both are doing the same job in different spaces. I would agree with him. I did some shifter testing before I did the USF test, just because it helps to learn how to drive something with gears in a gearbox and understand just how to handle that. Obviously, it's a different animal, though. I mean, I got in the car and was like, this is not near as fast as a go-kart. I was expecting a lot more. And it was fast, but it was not near as intense and aggressive. But yeah, I would agree with him. If you're trying to do something like that, you would obviously, if you're trying to go to cars and stuff, shifter is probably a good route. But I mean, right now the industry's still strong in X30. I mean, everybody's saying X30 was going to die out and blah blah blah, and that this is the class is dying, but it still has 40 entries. Still good, very good turnout. I mean, I think last year, maybe we're a little bit shy of last year. I don't know how many we had last year. We had 60
Well,
last year.
We had a lot here last year. We had 60, but I mean, also last year was the transition, I think, to running, KA a whole lot more, and then KA got competitive to now guys are revving them a whole lot higher. The rebuild span is at the national level pretty much the same. You're showing up with 2 engines. They're running the same number of tires.
Yep.
Everything became identical, and I think that's almost kind of pushed it back. There's no question for a little bit, right? There was fear of beating you specifically, right? I mean, there was a lot of guys that are like, dude, I don't think I can beat you. And as any driver, the blame goes on equipment. So like, we'll go race something else where I think I don't feel like he's got an advantage. You know?
I mean, I hear that, but everybody's been saying that, and still got 40 entries. So
yeah, it still does.
I mean, it is what it is. I think. I mean, obviously, it's part of the sport. There's ebbs and flows. I think right now the really promising thing about the sport right now is that mini sold out. I think that's awesome. I think the micro and mini field are pretty heavy right now, which is really good because that means a lot of kids are going to come up. My goal would be to try and do like Danny says and get them all the way through senior 1 year, and then maybe shifter, and then let them go to cars if that's what they're going to do, because I don't really like seeing how they're doing now where they're going straight from junior to cars. I think you should do at least 1 year of senior, but that's for another time or another discussion. But it is promising to see a lot of minis there because 5 or 6 years, the field should be pretty good. Hopefully I'm not driving at that point. You never know with me.
There's two parts to that. We had one viewer question come in last week, and it was pretty good. So obviously today in the classes with KA, for example, just because both of them have LCQs, so qualifying groups maybe matter a little bit more, and you have a lot more one-off guys. But for a class where you only have 30 to 40, and you could run everyone in theory on track at the same time, happy hour is a pre-qualifying session. That's another set of tires right on the bill. Yeah. So I've thought for a while of like, all right, why don't you just do reigning championship points, and then everyone kind of defaults back off that. Because then if you do championship points for the qualifying order from the previous year, there's not always crossover, but then you pay the price. After round 1, everyone that showed up to round 1 is going to benefit. They're going to get to go into the fast group if they had a consistent good run through round number 1, but it saves a set of tires, right? I don't know. There's ways. That's part of the argument.
How much money are you going to spend in the weekend here? Quite a bit. That's an extra $200.
So let's switch on the other end then.
Yeah.
Cash purses, right? This weekend you guys have a ton on both. There's
5Gs.
5Gs for X30. It's
5Gs,
not as much for you, Danny. I know. It's only what, $2,500 for you guys?
That's still nice.
But you compare that to the championship prize, and the champion gets the full season and 2 sets of tires. And then there used to be the IAME finals tickets. That kind of comes and goes each year.
Cash.
Nobody really does that. $2,500 cash. I mean, that's equal to a race weekend. I've heard from some guys, and I didn't even really think about it this way, but after going to the IndyCar race last weekend, thinking about it, how their deal works, right? I mean, the race winnings are what they are, but they have that huge winner's circle for the top 15 or 20 teams in the championship, and that's the majority of the money that really, if they don't get into that winner's circle, that's the only determinant of whether or not that car is going to have enough money to do a full season next year, or if they're going to need to fully fund it outside, which is super hard to do, even for those guys in that series where a lot of the sponsor deals have to be B2B deals because there's not as much manufacturer support. So question to both of you guys. Danny, maybe you might be on the opposite end of wanting this because you do a lot more one-offs, but would you think it make it be any easier to both consistently get numbers through the year, but also from the position you guys are in of structuring rides each year, if that money, instead of being 5Gs a weekend, was maybe $2,500 a weekend, but 25 out of each, all of a sudden that championship purse is $12,000 higher to pay out to the top 5. So your champion would be making maybe $10K and structure a deal easier over the course of the season.
I like the championship because I do better in championships than I do in races. But yeah, that's just me. I always like that. But I mean, to be honest, the turnout is determined by the purse a lot of the time for that race, because a lot of people are like Danny where they do one-offs, and like if you're like $5,000 to win a race, you're like, dang, I'm gonna show up for that just because like I'm not running like the whole season.
Well, because the argument is like for a guy, let's say maybe not so much this weekend because this weekend's a one main event, but like Pro Tour is a good example, right? Where you could finish fourth both days, you're out of the money, but you're like in contention for the championship all the way to the end of the year. But the guy funding you might be like, well, you didn't bring any money back, like. There's no return on investment there. But a consistent guy through the championship, or one good day, one bad day, all of a sudden he's in a much better spot for the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think people are.
I don't know who that
looking at it.
Was that you, Danny? Oh, the wife's calling it, probably, ain't she?
I don't think people are in that boat, really. I don't think that's reality. I mean, people aren't. Unless you're a big team, I think your return on investment is like you're going to sell karts down the road. I don't think you're talking about cash prizes at the end of the day. I think everybody just looks at the cash prize as a bonus. It's like, oh, yay, I got some extra money. We can buy some beers. And if you're a nice driver and you got the money, you go and you spoil your mechanic and you give everybody a little cut. I get to go buy a motorcycle at the end of the year. That's basically what it comes down to, where I think, I think everybody kind of understands when you're sponsoring a driver. Unfortunately, unless the whole thing is structured into a sense of like the winning circle, like F1 would be, where there's a prize for the teams at the end of the year, I don't think the teams are looking at it as a
that's also different
money
too,
maker,
right?
as in like the race itself is the money maker. I think they're thinking of the finishing.
It's never enough money. It'll never be enough money.
It's never well because it's all structured off entry fees. It's never going to be enough that way too.
Forget the cash prizes for the teams. It'll never be enough money for, let's say, Mike, let's say sponsors me and Ryan to race, and at the end of the year it's $12,000. My God, we spent $8,000 each this weekend minimum. Tires, mechanic, my fee, Ryan's fee.
Last year.
Motors, last week testing, hotels, flights. It'll never be enough in karting. Okay, maybe in IndyCar, yes, you make your winner circles $1 million or $650,000. Yes, then yes. But in go-kart, it'll never be that much because there is no money behind us or behind any series because they don't have corporate sponsors. Like AMA Supercross, Monster Energy probably gives them $10 million a year. Obviously, there's going to be some cash prizes. They get $10 million. Okay, let's say MG.
Their prizes, I think, are pretty low, actually, aren't they?
Their per race prizes are really low,
Yeah,
but that's a whole other debate, right? Like, so that's one thing that we follow, right? Like, it's only $12K to win the 450 mains. Now they've extended it finally this year to be a little bit more because they've been having another series pop up that all of a sudden pressured them because they dominated the market share. So their total revenue, what they brought in was like the debate of like how UFC fighters are grossly underpaid compared to boxers, right?
Yeah.
It was even worse for the Supercross guys. I mean, we're talking like single-digit % of the total revenue that a Supercross event brings in, because you're talking 40,000, 50,000 spectators. So their deal, I mean, and they too, like the overall series does have corporate sponsors, and some of the major race teams do, but a lot of it's like internal, industry sponsors, right, off product, which is the other half of it, right? Like getting the reach of each event here and every driver pulling the weight, Ryan doing social media, you've got a big social media following, all that goes into viewership on the broadcast. The broadcast sponsorship kind of comes first, but because there's all that extra exposure, in theory you're selling more go-karts, so you're at least putting the go-kart brand up front.
That's what Ryan said, and that's the important thing. Sales of go-karts, new customers, interest in coming to racing, interest of doing testing, interest of a one-off to see if they like the team. That is why Ryan and I are here. Also, people, I just came in. We have one kid that has a hard time listening to some of the coaches and just understands me. And Ryan has a kid that's the same. He doesn't listen to me, he listens to Ryan. There's one kid that doesn't listen to me or Ryan listens to Ben. The same to Cedric. So it's a little bit of everything of why Mike brings us in to do what we do. So, I think if we could raise the prices per race, leave the championship the same, more money for the championship. Should be more because it's way harder to win the championship than win a single race, 100%. You have to do well for 6 weekends. Let's say $30,000 to win the championship, and it should be minimum for pro class. Even there's 20, 15, 20, 30, 100. $5,000 minimum, $7,500 better per race. If you want to attract people by money, if you want to attract people by numbers and just racing, then no. But if you want to attract people to do single offs, like I don't know like Barrichello, let's say, I just came up quickly in my head. You tell them, hey, we're racing Orlando. We just broke his track record today. For $15,000, I guarantee you he would have been here.
Yeah.
I guarantee you say KZ race all over the world, even though they're testing in WSK for the FIA. You tell them, hey, there's a race in Orlando, USPKS. Winner going to get $15,000. Second place will get $7,000. Third place get $5,000. We'd have 50 freaking KZs right now. Not joking. And that's the thing about money. It just changes so much of the concept of racing. If they would have not gave us money and there was 18, there would have been half the people for the next race. And that's a promise. Just because, why come? Why would pro drivers come if they could just coach? I loved racing and I love doing it. I'm going to do it my whole life until I can. But it's a lot. You prepare yourself, especially me. I diet so hard for these races. Don't eat much during the weeks. Like, I killed myself to be here doing this. I could just be coaching, drinking Cokes, and eating steak like these guys were with fries. I wish I could.
I'm bulking.
It's
different for me.
You should have bulked more, bro. Half a pound. But you know what I mean. So that's the way I see it. It's difficult. It's none of the series' fault. They push so hard to give us money, and I'm so thankful for it. But it's difficult. It's difficult. $2,500 is really nothing.
Yeah.
It's even, let's say, what is it called? A person that doesn't have a team, right?
Privateer.
Privateer comes and destroys me, AJ, and Kremers. Just destroys us.
They're gonna be $5K in the hole.
Minimum.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
the thing. Okay, yeah. You go home, you're happy, you're getting a check, $2,500. It's part of it, but my point is, it's never if you see it to, a purse to take out costs of what we do, it's too high. It'll never reach that. Like, even a privateer comes here, it's going to cost them $8,000 to $10,000 minimum. So let's say they give $10,000, he goes even home. Okay, it's awesome. That's badass. You did a race for free, but
yeah, I mean, that's like winning the Super Nats.
It's so difficult. So yeah, it's a really hard topic to get right, in my opinion.
I would agree. I think without corporate money, and I'm not saying that they're doing a bad job with the money. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that they're the reason now all the series have money is because of USPKS.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. USPKS stepped it up major, and then everybody followed suit after that. So I think they're doing. I don't know what they're taking out of whatever. I think the fact that they're giving money back is awesome because for a while nobody was giving anything back. So I think that's amazing. Obviously this is my career, so I always would like more money because more money is nice. But it is what it is. I think if you're looking at it as in like people are trying to pay back their racing and people are looking at this as like a
well, I think you just look at like
I don't think that's
normal. The realistic comparison, right, is it more sustainable than an alternate form that's equal, right? So we're not even talking like careers because you guys are realistically, right, free drivers, discounted drivers with paid driver coaches that race on the racetrack at the same time at the end of the day with the way it's structured right now.
Yes, correct.
And without question, right, if there's other revenue streams coming in, if there's corporate sponsors behind it, if the events are structured where you could have spectators or bigger audience, what we've got, right, all that stuff can come with it and then that could be different. But it's churning the whole event from being participants to part of the event as a driver.
Yeah.
And we're at a hybrid point, right, where we've probably got a lot of parents that were happy we had Wednesday practice this week, but for you guys, there was no need. I don't think so.
Yeah, but I mean, we were here last week, so
that too.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, yeah.
We can go on and on.
I hear you. We can go on and on, but it's one of those things where, I think unless the format was changed extremely to where it was something completely different, to where people could be making money, as a privateer, you could come to a race and you could come out up. I think it would have to be something completely different than what we're doing now because I don't think I don't know if it's possible, but just being in the sport, it's never happened. The only people that are making money or off of the prize money are the people who either have a free ride and their deal is that they get to keep the money. Even then, a lot of the times the people who have free rides, the deal is give the money back and that pays off their free ride. So, a lot of the time that's
what I'm saying. Very few people they're going to come in at a loss, right? But that's got to be part of why some guys are here.
Again, you do. Let's say you win 3 rounds and you don't win the championship, so that's $15,000. But if the championship was $12,000 and you win one race, it's like, okay, yeah, you'd be. It's hard to say. It's like it really depends, like how you've.
Are you saying that like the net of the conversation, right? Like whether you move it the goalpost to the end or per race. Is a wash.
That's all a wash. I think if we're talking about, let's say it's $12,000, that's what you're going to win. How much does the season cost? $40,000, $50,000?
Yeah, it's got to be fixed in a different way.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be
focusing on the wrong part of it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Danny and I like the money because we're in a very special spot where we get to keep our prize money, and we also come out of this weekend. It's our job, so we both get to come out happy, and then we get our money, and everybody feels good because we just got money and. Now everybody's drinking beers and we're having a good time. For most people, it's like it's nice because they paid off a lot of their stuff. But you don't even really come close to breaking even.
No. Well, let's wrap here for you guys a little bit. So you both have commitments to get to here tonight. I don't want to keep you too much. Obviously, I want to give you guys a little bit of plugs as well. So Ryan, Where are you at with the Karting Academy here? You've got your
yes.
hospitality suite.
Yes.
You've got the logo. You've got announcements that have come everywhere.
Yeah.
So what's the status?
Well, we're launching the Norberg Karting Academy. It's obviously a much more personalized coaching plan. It's not like your regular just show up for a day, drive some laps and come back. It's I think more of an experience than it is, anything. So you're going to come. Obviously, you're going to come experience some of the best coaching, out there with great product. I mean, I say so because I love it.
Yeah, it's a good sale. A good sale.
I think so, and I think the kids that have so far come through it and done the betas at least have shown some serious progression, and that just is because of all the stuff that we're doing. But yeah, right now we have a hospitality suite over there. If you want to come over, check it out. It's really cool. We'll have a balcony and stuff up going for the races. It's gonna be really nice. So yeah, this is kind of launch week, and then hopefully at some point we can show everybody on stream or something.
Did you get a big beer and liquor license up there? Are there shots going on in the Norberg Academy?
No, nobody has brought alcohol at all to the Norberg Karting Academy.
Daddy, man, you've got such a busy schedule, right? But you come back here a lot. I think, first of all, obviously, shout out to everything that you got coming on. But second, added on, why you like coming back so much. So next week's going to be big for you.
Yeah, big race. 12 hours of Sebring. My first 12 hours of Sebring. My first 24 hours of Daytona. I got this incredible opportunity this season after 2 good seasons of Super Trofeo with Wayne Taylor Racing. And, to race in IMSA has always been a dream of mine. To do it in a competitive team and competitive car, which we have right now, is just a dream, especially in a BOP class. I could have got a ride and been in a Porsche in Daytona where 4.5 seconds off the pace because of the BOP. And just to be in the mix, top 5, second in a couple practice sessions, it feels really good. But I come back to karting and I ask Raleigh to let me race every race just because I love it. There is nothing I love more to come here and try this, try that, go out, push myself, because every time I go in a go-kart, I learn something new. Like it's amazing. I learned something like today. I was hitting the curb in the chicane, downshifting at this point. Today I downshifted at this point and it got better. Like stuff like that. I have 1.7 million laps around this place. I did 172 laps last weekend. I'm still learning. So that's something in karting that I'll still love. This will be my 20th year in go-karts. This year at the end of it, December. It's exactly 20 years since my dad bought me my first Pufo kart in Costa Rica. And a lot of race wins, a lot of races, a lot of broken hearts. Had a broken heart a couple times here in Orlando. It just brings me back. It's a drug that I'll never be able to stop. And I'll stop go-karting when I don't make weight in senior anymore. My metabolism doesn't let me, eat 800 calories for a couple of days and lose the weight. Masters for me, no offense, I just don't want to do it until I'm at least 40, 42. I say that now. I'll probably turn 33 and straight to Masters.
Yeah, but I go farm the class like our buddy Ben.
But it's just it's something I love, and I'll never stop until I have the opportunity. Luckily, I still have some speed left in karting. It's like riding a bicycle, right? So, yeah, just karting. I'll keep doing it. Hopefully, we do well this weekend. And Mike lets me run in Pro Tour. I think there'll be a little more entries just because the GFC group will be able to make it. I know I asked Gary why he wasn't here. He couldn't make it from Coda. It was really close, and they're completely West Coast. So, yeah, I really want to do Pro Tour too, and as many races as I can as my schedule allows me to. Unfortunately, I won't be able to race the whole USPCAS just because my schedule doesn't allow me to, and Mike knows that. Mike's okay with that. He just wants to prove the product, and that's why I'm here. But, yeah, karting is karting, and it'll always be forever my best motorsport, best form of motorsports, the most physical, the hardest, just everything. Like, if I lift my shirt, you think I got beat up by Conor McGregor. I'm not even joking. Especially me, I don't use rib protector, and and it's a great thing for next week. It's going to be hot in Sebring, 12 hours. Minimum drive time is 3 hours. So it's I'll probably drive around 4.5, 5. So it'll be a lot of driving. It's really bumpy, Sebring, like extremely bumpy. The car that I drive is extremely small. I'll put it this way. Ryan Risco is about the same size as Ryan. He had no seat insert. and he drove the same as me. The pedals don't move forward, and the steering wheel doesn't move
How
up
did you
or down.
fit in that thing?
Yes. Just imagine. I was driving like this for, 2-hour stints. My lower back felt like I got shot, So, this is perfect. Getting beat up now, taking a couple days off and going to Sebring is going to be perfect. It's going to feel really slow. It's going to feel like driving an MX-5 Cup car, after driving a KZ for these many days. So, yeah, man, karting is everything. And until Raleigh allows me to do it, until he tells Danny, you're done, that'd probably be my retirement for a while. And hopefully that doesn't come anytime soon.
Well, we're happy to have both of you guys here. We'll take a commercial break, obviously, everybody. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Thank you, Ryan and Danny, for the time. And we'll be right back after this. Mark Coates, Randy Kugler, coming to join us here in just a few moments. Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAMI and Vortex Rock engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jecco Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com. Don't settle for a national engine builder. Take care of yourself with an international one. SRP Engines is a global industry leader in engine services, specializing in engine formulas such as KZ, OK, OKJ, and Mini 60. SRP Engines is the engine of choice for Magic Kart USA and helped power North America's #1 ranked pro shifter driver AJ Myers to the 2021 SuperKarts USA Pro Tour National Championship. SRP Engines can also service any spec engine class of your choice, including IAMI and ROC divisions. However, if you're looking for the absolute choice when it comes to KZ shifter engines, there is nobody better. For more information, contact Amar Sonata at srp-engines.com. KC Happy Hour is proudly presented by the Rock Sonoma Karting Championship, presented by Cameron Race Promotions, the most competitive Northern California karting series. Featuring a 2-day format with practice on Saturday and racing on Sunday, multiple track configurations, and a massive prize structure including tickets to Rock Vegas, race car test opportunities, and race rewards. Rock Sonoma is the training ground of multiple national karting champions each year and race car champions as well. Featuring a full Rock Cup USA class structure with each race weekend streamed live via YouTube, it's a series you cannot miss. For more info, check us out online at zanzarukarting.com. Looking for the perfect vacation spot and a family fun weekend where a race breaks out? Look no further than Karting the Coast. Our 10-race schedule is already well underway, with stops at NOLA Motorsports Park in New Orleans and Finish Line Performance Karting in Biloxi, Mississippi, where our podium ceremonies are on the beach. We know how to have a good time and put on a good race, and all that we're missing is you. To find out more, visit kartingthecoast.info. From 4-stroke to 100cc to 125cc and beyond, Technokart USA has a winning option for you. Based out of Des Plaines, Illinois, Technokart USA offers both chassis designed to win in all divisions of North American karting and a top-level race support program at the U.S. Pro Kart Series, Route 66 Sprint Series, select Cup Karts North America races, and both the Rock Vegas and SCUSA Super Nationals. Podiums, wins, and championships are waiting for you whenever you're ready to get on a Technokart. For more information, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TechnokartUSA. All right, guys, welcome back. We traded out a couple drivers here for a couple boys in US PKS Blue, Randy Kugler, Blake Hunt. We have to give Mark at least a little bit of heck for this here.
Yeah.
This was his show. This was meant to be the Mark Coates Kart Chaser Happy Hour debut, and he bails on you.
I
Randy,
failed miserably.
No, you didn't fail. Blake, thanks for stepping in, of course. Appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Mark Jr.
Mark Jr. How was your day, Blake? How was practicing qualifying today?
Well, it's beautiful out here. Pretty full field, so that's good to see. But honestly, pretty uneventful besides the tire on the track.
Yeah, that was a little bit. I heard Mark said, we're just going to put that thing away for the rest of the weekend.
We get a bigger MG tire every year, so this had to happen eventually.
I'm not going to lie to you. I was impressed that the USPKS crew sprung into action. It's like, Oh, yeah, where's the manual? Oh, yeah, if the tire falls on the track, this is what we do. Red flag comes out, you guys are over there putting it right back up. So
That was the quickest red flag we've ever had.
yeah.
That was quick. I'm sure everybody knew, like, instinctively, but that's not a fire drill you normally go through.
No, I don't want to go through it again.
So I think the best question for both of you guys, Blake, we talked about this, I think, the last time we had you on Happy Hour, right? But here you've done through now a full season as head race director, basically. You got another full season ahead. Why do you come back? Because everyone says race directed sucks. So what drives you to come back? Obviously, you weren't pissed off enough by angry parents last year to sign on again, or got swindled in some way. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know why everyone says it's that bad. Maybe it's just me. Nobody's really that terrible to me.
Yeah.
Honestly, not that many people walk up and whine every weekend, but I really do it because I like Mark. I like to support the series. As a driver, it was always my favorite series to race. And when he asked me to come do it, I thought, of course, because I want to see it continue to grow and prosper, and I love the USPKS, honestly.
And Randy, for you, right, it was a special treat to have you come back. It was almost like a throwback at the finale last year at Newcastle. Is that what got you the bug that wanted to come back for this year? I mean, what made the decision where you wanted to go on the road again for this?
Mark reached out to me last year and said, would you come to Newcastle for our last race? And we got the banquet and this and that. And I said, yeah, man, that'd be kind of cool. See some of my old buddies I haven't seen in a while. And, Tim and Chris Coyen and Rick Jump and Allie and, of course, Mark and just a lot of people that I helped, I say helped. I was part of that team in the beginning in 2013. So it was kind of cool to come back and got to work with you and had to step up my game a lot working with this guy. But I think after that I said, well, that's kind of cool, And so over the winter I was, Mark and I, we talk every now and then anyway. And I said, if you're interested, I might be interested in doing something. He goes, yeah, definitely. So we kind of talked a bit and decided I'd come back and do some races with you. So I'm pretty excited about it. I admire you for your passion and your knowledge, and I believe me, I try to stay with you, but it's hard to do.
Well, I appreciate that, Randy. I don't think I've told you this actually, but some of the first ever karting videos I ever saw were some of the old Speedcast TV recaps that they used to do way back in the day when you were doing, it was like you and Rob, I think, doing like CKI and some of the old, I don't remember if it was CKI and then there was one other, there was the Rotax Winners CKI deal they did. They had the West and the East, and that was really some of the first videos I think I ever really saw of karting that were big. Were like some old Snap-on Stars of Karting promos,
right? And
some stuff from like that. So out of curiosity, what was that setup like? Were you guys like PA guys for the track? Did they have a monitor like this too? I mean, we're talking. I don't want to make you feel uneasy, but it was, no. It was a while back.
We might have had a small monitor, but we really called the race from the track, and it was fed into the PA. And then we did a lot with interviews, and we worked off of, I think there was a former race monitor or something back then. That's been a while.
Yeah.
But, it's so much more sophisticated now, and now we got the big screen because you knew you were working with me and you needed today, I have to tell you, right now the screen has like 4 sections to it, and right before we started today, Xander leans over, he thinks I couldn't hear me, he goes, listen, can we put everything just on a great big screen for Randy so he can see it? So that worked out well. I could see it. The fonts were bigger. The numbers were bigger on the cards.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun back then, and it was probably, at that point, it was like the first stage of karting getting on TV. So to be a part of that was kind of cool, and I appreciate you remembering that because there was some good stuff back then and some big names.
Yeah. I mean, big names back then, and we go back right before this, right? Danny and Ryan, we got on a tangent like we always do, talking about elevating stuff with the sport, right, and corporate sponsors. At that time, a lot of those series had some big backing, right?
They had Snap-on with Stars of Karting. We had a great partnership with John Doonan at Mazda for a couple of years. We had Holly Performance with our Speedway program for a couple of years. So there was a stretch run there where we had some high-end sponsors that allowed us to put more money back into the series, and we got good results. And I look back at our graduates. I mean, it's not just about the drivers. Chris Gabehart, the crew chief for Denny Hamlin, was probably one of our top Speedway drivers back in the day. So there was a lot of cool stuff we did back then. The Briggs and Stratton 300, I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah, the Charlotte Oval race.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to your question about USPKS, I really believe in the series. And the one thing I always tell people at USPKS is leadership and results start at the top. And Mark Coates leads by example. And when you come into this place, you will see him. When you arrive, you'll see him. And he will make sure you're parked in the proper spot. And if you're not or you have an issue, he's accessible. You know, he may tell you, hey, that's it. That's the best we can do. But you can get to him. He's not hiding behind anything. He's not running off somewhere else or another location. He's there. And I think that sends volumes to people that knows that he's committed to this program and he believes in customer service. And I think the results show with the numbers.
Is that do you have a lot of that in your day-to-day stuff on like a practice day today too, Blake, where you have a lot of guys when they catch you walking around the paddock kind of asking questions and you try to make yourself available when you can?
Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot of what being part of the USPKS is. It's Mark's a Midwestern guy. A lot of the staff are Midwestern people. And it's always had that kind of Midwestern hospitality feel. And I try to bring that because it's good to be able to find someone who can answer your question, who will help you out. And I think all the staff try to bring that. We try to be there to talk to people, work with them. We try to be flexible where we can be and try to help people out.
And so for your personal progression with doing race directing at a big stage, right, when you walked into it, midway through on the early part of last year, was there any anxiety you had coming into it? And then, is there a lot you feel like you've learned and you come into these weekends with a different, outlook? I mean, you were assistant race directing before, so it's not like it's a major jump into it. But going back to that weekend and then to where you are now, is it a big difference?
Honestly, I think going from assistant to head race director is more just it's less on track and more dealing with the people, dealing with protests, all that. But honestly, I think a lot of what makes it easy for us is we have really good people that are assistant race directing. We have a race directing team of, I think, 5. And I don't have to sweat anything because I know we have good guys. I know they're going to make good calls. I'm not going to say we don't miss much, but I'm going to say that we cover everything the best way we can. And so I don't really have much to worry about. So I can focus on people's problems, where we went wrong, and address that instead rather than worrying about making sure we get things right. I know things are going as good as they can.
And you came into a company that was already existing. All these people already had a lot more experience race directing, at least, than you had, and still have a lot of years on you in life. So have you had to tread any kind of water? Or is that like a worry at all? Like, hey, let me make sure I don't rock the boat, or, how do you handle managing people older than you? Because that's something that I have some experience with, and I can attest to, and it's, it's not as easy when you don't have almost like an already given respect just due to age.
That's a lot of the thing is like, I might be the head race director, but I think that's more just a title for the customers to deal with. But as like an effective unit on the track, we really are kind of autonomous on our own. Everyone that's out there making calls and everything and dealing with on-track matters. So it's not like I'm nitpicking. I'm not micromanaging them. So I don't feel like I'm managing someone. It's more we just work together as a team. We come to conclusions. We agree on things. We disagree on things. When we disagree, we get together and we talk about it. And we, in the end, come to something we can all agree on, and there's really not much conflict on that front. I don't feel like it's not like head race director and assistant race directors. It's like we're a team, and I'm just the public-facing side of it.
That makes sense. Randy, my questions for you are obviously a little bit different. Just knowing you're a part of that era and got to see some of it, from like having all those guys involved, and I feel like karting's had like spurts where we've had like opportunities for growth where all of a sudden we've got some big brands behind us, maybe some big pro drivers come back from IndyCar, from NASCAR, and like when Dan Weldon was racing at the Supernats, he'd bring the National Guard, they do a whole booth there, and I know for us, whenever those guys would come back and race the last couple of years, we tried to make a really concerted effort to build up that they were racing and capture that they were here and have stuff that they would go on their socials for there. But that's just social media stuff. So we've had those brands in the past. When we talk about getting bigger brands or bigger corporate sponsors and not just internal karting sponsors involved, that's not a new theory. So you've seen that come and go. Can you attest any reason maybe why that left, or maybe is there something better that could have been done back in the day to keep massaging a relationship with companies like that to help us with all these events? Because any kind of infusion of even just a little bit of corporate money, in their world, a little bit would be a lot of it for all of us.
To get corporate America involved in something like karting, they want to see return of investment, they want to see exposure, they want to see building their brand and their customer base. And we had the ability at WK. We were at the point I was there. We're a massive organization. We had almost 10,000 members. Plus, we had a thumbprint on most of karting in the United States at the time. So we had the ability to sit down with the Mazdas and the Holleys and the Briggs & Stratton and say, we can get your brand out to a lot of people, and it's your younger demographic. And that's the relationship my dad built with Briggs & Stratton, was the fact that Briggs & Stratton felt if I can convince a 5-year-old to race a Briggs & Stratton, he'll buy our lawnmower when he's 21. Mm-hmm. And I think you've got to get back to that. One, you've got to show that there's going to be exposure, that the brand is going to be marketed and exposed to people that's not exposed to now. And in the case of karting, in a lot of cases, that younger demographic will grow up believing in that brand and purchasing that product. And that's what it takes. And I'm not sure, I mean, that almost takes a national organization that has the infrastructure of racers all over the country that follow that cause and that brand and that sponsor, so that the numbers are there. And I don't know where that exists right now. And I think that's the difficulty of it. Or building what you're doing, where there's more exposure, where people out there that aren't even at the event can see it, watch it, and then you get that brand exposure there. But the bottom line is there's got to be a return of investment for them to do it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And there was, a lot of it at the time, right? There was the Formula BMW series, right?
Yeah.
Was a big
Skip
deal.
Barber.
Skip Barber was behind it for a while here and there. So, and that's a tough thing that I got to talk to a lot of those kind of cars guys. I'd say bigger brands. I mean, they're kind of corporate America. Car racing such a bigger industry than what we are, right? Bigger money going around, but it's not like an outside brand like a Briggs & Stratton or like a Snap-on Tools or something like that. Back in the day, did you ever have like the pushback that, because all those guys say now, and there's no doubt that I think it's real, of like they feel like they can't break in because we're afraid to let people go up to them, on the car racing, like Skip Barber stuff like that. Did you ever have that like pushback back in the day when your dad was running WK, when you guys, when you were involved with it for a long time, of like, hey, we are the foundation, and we're okay to help guys go all the way up the car ladder?
There's a difference of opinion on that with a lot of people. My opinion was it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Whether we help it happen or not, it's going to happen. Why not promote, at least give the opportunity for the better drivers to get that chance? So if you were at the upper echelon of the Manufacturers Cup back in the day, you got a 3-day Skip Barber. Mm-hmm. We had probably half a dozen kids that would go to Skip Barber for 3 days on our sponsorship, because you're going to lose some of those kids anyway. Why not help them, and they'll remember you along the way as they progress, because you helped them get there. And if you're doing your job, 10 more people will come in to replace the one you lost. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just an evolution that you can ignore it or you can promote it.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes perfect sense. And I think part of it, too, is like now there's an overload of options, right, for kids to go car racing. I mean, Blake, you and I have seen it with a bunch of our friends, and now younger kids as we're getting older a little bit. But I mean, dude, there are a lot of different ways to go car racing, and not all of them are the best bang for your buck, and not all of them are the right way on the path. So I think part of it too now is like, people will see someone burn out, really in a year because they kind of got misguided and went to the wrong series or the wrong team, or maybe didn't go to a school and jump straight in, and then they spent a year racing what was the F4 series, really the last couple of years, and they finally tidied it up a little bit, but they were taking kids straight into the Formula 4 race cars without any schools, without any training, and sure enough, every race was a full-on caution fest. So those guys spent twice, 3 times, 4 years of karting budget in one season, and we're like, well, this
and the kids intimidated now. It's like, geez, I guess I don't have what I thought I had, when in fact he wasn't brought along slow enough to progress at his pace, versus throwing him in without the proper training.
Yeah. Blake, you're in the heart of racing over in North Carolina, right? I know it because I'm somewhat in your friend circle as well, right? So you are well in with knowing all those guys are. Your good buddies with the Fittipaldi brothers, Enzo and Pietro. I mean, you've done all kinds of different kind of racing. I think if you can attest here on this public forum as well, like there is to a degree a rush in a very select amount of series, but that's only for like the 1%ers, the Brent Cruzes, Connor Zillishes that can go at 14. there's nothing wrong with waiting a little bit or maybe taking, even if it's in cars, a slower path to get to it, because if you have the budget, you're going to be able to play the game, right?
I think budget is always, at the end of the day when it comes to cars, the number one thing. But, yeah, a lot of these kids, especially in Mooresville, it's different. They get on the Chevy Toyota development program or Toyota, and that kind of shapes their path instead of a dad writing a check and that's shaping their path and they're going where the karting people think that they should be going. And I think, honestly, we're in America, and America's kind of asphalt oval racing country. Even as growing up as kids, we all were obsessed with
NASCAR.
European.
Yeah, we were NASCAR fans when we started up. Well, were you? You were a big F1 fan over there?
Yeah, I was
a NASCAR fan growing up.
As a little kid, I was, and then once I started karting, it was all like every little karting kid wants to go to F1. They all have these illusions. Oh, I'm going to be an F1 driver, this and that. And it's like I think a lot of people shoot too high and burn out and end up, they could have went somewhere else if they'd chosen a different path. Like, say, I don't know, rally cars, something like that. They don't broaden their horizons. They look at single-seater racing, open wheel, and that's the only thing they see as the path forward. Like a lot of kids I raced with, I was looking at the 24 entry list. I went to the 24 this year, and I'm like, half the field I raced go-karts with, like Danny. And it's like, if you just broaden your horizons, sports car racing is a cheaper path than, say, going open-wheel racing, burning out your budget, and you're back go-karting. You can get more years, more experience, go farther, and there's way more opportunity, say, for someone like Danny to become a paid driver than there ever will be in open wheel. There's no paid open wheel drivers unless you're an IndyCar or F1.
Yeah, normally the way that
some of those aren't paid.
Yeah, no, but some of those aren't, and the way the IndyCar deal works right now, if you're coming up, it's still, even once you have run the whole ladder, run the gauntlet basically, it's pay your own way for a year or two, and then you got to trigger a bidding war. Like, you got to buy the seat for the first year, maybe the second year. There was that anomaly when Arrow McLaren went to the whole new roster with Oliver and Pato, and they got paychecks in their rookie year. But that's a once in a lifetime thing. You know, really, it's like Rinus VeeKay is a great example of where he was. Right, he had the Jumbo sponsorship with the longtime partner he had, and then he performed so well in his first, I think, 2 years with Ed Carpenter. All of a sudden, he had other teams interesting last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he was, on a bare minimum, a much better deal when he re-signed with them for this year, because he had other teams interested. That's the only way you can kind of draw that number down and become, paid over there, just because there isn't the manufacturer support. Whereas on the sports car side, not only do you have a lot more manufacturer support, I mean a lot more than anywhere else, because that's where they're putting a lot of their money now, but you have all the pro-am opportunities with gentleman drivers that are looking for a seasoned pro, in the same way that over here in karting and in a couple of like the MX5 Cup and Road to Indy teams where they've got kind of like a seasoned vet that's basically, he's a paid driver, but what he is a paid driver coach. There's those opportunities. But I mean, a good example of that, going back to the previous generations, right, it's Joey Hand. I mean, he came up where a lot of guys tried to go the path that Scott Speed got lucky enough to go on and to become a Red Bull driver. Joey Hand went off, and he's been a paid sports car driver and paid just racing driver, doing everything, doing NASCAR the last few years in the Cup Series with a car prepped by Stuart Haas, and been able to make a living, been able to use his network and use what he's made to run his son Chase and go-karts for the last few years, and is still running this year.
He found his place, and he's so successful at it now. I got to see him at Newcastle last year. Hadn't seen him in a really long time, but he came up through our constructors series and then moved on to sports cars. I actually went through the Skip Barber and moved on. But, just a fine young man, a great family, and so successful. Now one of the top premier sports car drivers in the country.
And there's no question Joey Hand, if he had the backing behind him, he would have been one of the top IndyCar stars as well, right?
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. But, he made the right strategic moves all the way up. And that's what's so tough about this sport, even in karting right here, right, of like when to move up and what direction to go, what series to go, what class to go at the right time, and how to develop, if you're not ready, that path. That's so tough for parents because, I mean, you're looking at kids now that are on F1 academies and all. I know you're rolling your eyes at that because we know it's a paid franchise tag now. Unfortunately, very rarely are those F1 academies anymore paying like they should be. They're paying to be inside the roster and inside the family, but a lot of them, it's like they think they're going the right path, but by the time that they figure it out, it's too late. Connor Zillish's dad is a good example. Connor's now on the Chevy program with KHI. Luckily, that kind of deal ended up coming together in a different way, but in the way, they figured out how to get him good at karting because they went through it with his older brother Bradley, and then you talk to Jim or you hear about it, he's like, man, I wish we would have figured it out because Bradley was really good too, and if we would have done the same steps we did with Connor. But, luckily he just had another little brother right there, and someone in the family is going to have a really good shot at making a living at it. But they didn't. That's tricky, right? So I think that goes back on the point of our responsibility, right, of karters in the sport that, number one, like you said, if you make the funnel at the bottom bigger, you don't need to worry about the little trickle going out at the top pyramid, right, upside down funnel. But, second, we're the ones with the industry connections and the industry experience and know guys that have gone all the way. I think without question, we're not doing enough of a service to helping people, go the right path in a trustworthy way.
Agreed.
And part of that, too, is our sport's hard to get to. I know from a race directing standpoint at a club level, and I'm sure you experience this when you do club stuff at GoPro, it's so hard for some parents to find their way into the sport, and sometimes they maybe go to the wrong guy to buy a go-kart from initially. By the time they finally get racing, they have this almost closed-off mentality because they're like, well, everyone here told me the wrong way, and I figured my own way out to get in, so I know how to race, right? And it's like, you tell them, like, oh, you can't knock a guy out of the way. Yes, you can. That's racing. I know exactly what I'm talking about. No, I know you can't. I've been doing this for a while. No, I had to figure it all out on myself, right? I think that's another issue that we have, and there's a lot of stuff we could work on. There's a lot of stuff every industry can work on. I don't want to harp on that too long, but I know that at the club level, that was something that I like. To me, I thought about it a long time to try and figure out, like, what is it that's they're coming to me so hard-headed, and I think you have to be kind of hard-headed to figure your way out and hopefully not get burnt and spend money in the wrong direction even going into karting, right? Because, there's a lot of wrong ways to go about getting into sports. People that show up at the track all the time with junker go-karts or wrong class, doesn't get raced anymore, and they already dropped the 4K on it, yeah,
exactly. And then it sits in the garage and they sell it for $1,000
and they're gone.
Mm-hmm. That's why places like Mooresville, I always go back to Camden, Ohio, and G&J Cartway. The OVK has been a solid club forever. There needs to be more places like those where somebody can go in and immediately meet someone at the track they can trust to give them the right guidance so they don't get burnt out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think at Mooresville, like, honestly, these days, club racing, brand new people to karting, they have to just get lucky with who they meet. Because there's so many people, I think, with the wrong intentions. They're just trying to milk new guys for what they can, and they don't really care whether it turns into a super long-term deal or not because they just keep churning through them. And it's kind of tough to watch because these guys, they get burnt out. A lot of them leave the sport.
Yeah.
Because they meet the wrong guy at first, and that's who they start with. And they feel used up, and they feel like, well, this didn't get me anywhere. And now.
Yeah, and they think everybody's like that, right? That's the other part. They assume all the officials at the track are like that they're all out to get them, and that all the really good, trusted shops and full-time guys, right? There's for just as many, really legit Franklin Motorsports, Comet Kart Sales, Kart Sport, Tim Shutt over with Timmy Tech's a really great guy at bringing new people in and being honest about them, right, and have the right intentions. And part of that's because, chicken or the egg, horse or the carriage of are they sustainable as a business where they don't need to get that desperate. At the same time, because they were that way, they've made a sustainable business is the real right answer. But yeah, they have the vision that everyone's like that, and I hope that with stuff we're doing, we're proving that there are people out there that aren't like that at all. Obviously, you guys are great advocates for both of that and everything that you've done. Randy, of course, your history and lineage goes without saying, and it needs no introduction. And I've been a big fan of yours, like I said, even back from those videos, because that was legit the first ever race karting stuff I saw, and I remember seeing those, and I was like, as a kid, being a NASCAR fan, why don't they race 36 races a year? So I looked up every kart track, and I was like, this is the Xander Snap-on Stars of Karting, and I have the whole document, probably on some dusty old computer my parents thrown out, of some 36 race. We're going to go to Newcastle and New Jersey. Yeah. No idea. Oh, 36 race, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, right,
that's a lot of money. Yeah. And a whole misunderstanding how the sport works. But that stuff introduced me to it. Yeah. Watching one of those videos
that's cool.
Sent me down the path. And so that's That's how I remembered and first knew about you, which was cool. And then, getting to race the USPKS here and you on that, which was cool.
Yeah.
So, Blake, I guess closing thoughts here while we wrap this stuff up. For this weekend, for your year this year, you're back again. You enjoy it. You said the weekend's been pretty good. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here would tune back in, but for anyone new looking to come to the series, what's one piece of advice you could leave families with tuning in?
I think the best thing you could do is try every series, honestly, and see what you like. Because I've raced about every series in the country, and USPKS, honestly, for me, far and away, it's not a high stress place, but it's a professional place to race. It's at a high level. Everything is run well, but it's not like the officials are overly aggressive, and they're not bossing you around. There's not absurd penalties. It's not nitpicky. They work with you. They're compromising when they can be, and it's a good place to race. The people are great. That's all there really is to it. It's just a welcoming place to race.
And Randy, for you too, right? Like closing thoughts out of here, not even just USPKS as well, but into karting. You've seen so many families at all different levels of racing. You've got such a great network and people that know you through it all. For any new families into karting or relatively new already into it, right? Like, what's the one piece of advice you could leave like a parent or something like that? Because we get a lot of parents that are brand new, not national level yet, even club level, have a lot of questions of, what should I know?
What I always used to tell people as they got into karting was, number one, at least at the grassroots level, mom and dad need to be involved. It's not stick and ball where you drop them off and a coach coaches them and you sit back and cheer them on. You're there. You're hands-on. And if you do it right, you'll learn how to lose and learn from losing and get better. And you learn how to win graciously, knowing that if you don't step up your game, somebody's going to beat you at the next stop. So if you let karting do that, you'll not just learn how to race, winning and losing, but you'll learn a lot about life. If you let it. But if you get too hardcore and it stops being fun at the grassroots, forget about it because it's not going to work for you.
I think that's a great point. I see a lot of kids whose parents are overly intense early on. And the kids are burnt out, and they don't want to be racing by the time they're in junior, and then they're gone from the sport.
If it's not fun for the kid at that age, it's never going to be fun for him.
Yeah, you got to be patient, right? I mean, you got to let them live their life how they want to. I mean, I can be honest and think that I don't think I took it seriously enough at the track. I wanted it, but I was just as big of a fan of wanting to watch the other classes on track as I should have been in the pit looking over my data with a fine-tooth comb more than what I did until probably the last year at junior. And for sure at the club level. And it was fun. And thankfully we didn't waste a whole lot of money when I wasn't interested. And I think we're pretty smart with it all the way up. But you gotta do what's right for you and let that path kind of almost pave itself a little bit.
Absolutely.
Well, boys, I thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Blake, as always, thank you for being a fill-in. I appreciate that. Someday we'll get Mark Coates on here. Mark, it's official call-out to you now. I'm making it public. Randy's making it public. Blake's making it public. As long as you sign Blake's paycheck at the end of the weekend. If you won't, then Blake's not going to say anything. But we'd love to have you on. And as always, guys, thank you guys for tuning into KC Happy Hour. We thank you guys so much for all the time and support. And we'll be back live, of course, with the broadcast, myself and Randy in the booth. Blake will have a different kind of headset on tomorrow early in the morning. We go live with the first C race at 9 a.m. So thanks for watching and see you guys tomorrow.